And good evening and welcome to Impact 2022. I'm Pastor Watkins. I'm standing in for Nathaniel Watkins. He'll be here in a momentarily. But we just wanted to make sure we were on time and make sure that those of you who are there watching know that we're going to be engaging today. Impact 2022 is a program, kind of like a talk program, where you have an opportunity to share your views and opinions about issues that we talk about today. And we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of different things that are going on in our world today. And we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. And one of the great things about this program is that we talk about things in relationship to the Christian perspective, our Christian perspective. And so that as we begin to talk about these things, we do have a perspective that we look at, that we find to be important, that speaks to how we deal with a situation. And so, again, we invite you to just stay tuned. Be ready with your questions. If you have any questions or you have any comments that you would like to make, feel free to do so. We invite you to just to type in your questions or your comments and in the section, and what we'll do is they'll read them, and they will also share those comments and any questions that you have. They will try to answer those questions. Any comments that you have, they will be shown. So if you don't want your comment to be shown, let us know ahead of time by just typing in. Don't show this, but this is a discussion that we have. Now, when we look at what's going on in the world today, like I said, there's a lot of things going on. I guess the one thing that is capturing us more than anything right now is the shooting that occurred in Buffalo as well as in California, and particularly the one in Buffalo where 10 persons were killed at a local supermarket. And the persons were gunned down by a young man, 18 years old, who admittedly said that he had been radicalized in relationship to white supremacy, and he subscribed to what they call the great race theory, or the white race theory, or replacement theory. Let me say it right there. The replacement theory. There's a understanding or belief by some groups, particularly whites, supremacists, who believe that there is a movement in this country to replace white people, to even get rid of white folk. And so what they're saying is that they're encouraging people to marry so that they can mix the races and things of that nature. And so that there are some who are very angry about that. And so they're so angry about it, and that they're willing, as this young 18-year-old did, was willing to target Black communities and kill as many Black people as they could. What's interesting to me, when we look at that and when we think about that, we've had all these people to yell and scream about this critical race theory. But what about this replacement theory? Obviously you're saying that we shouldn't be dealing with critical race theory, but y'all are dealing with this replacement theory. Seems to me, just to me, that we would kind of say, okay, if we can't talk about critical race theory, then we shouldn't be able to talk about this replacement theory either, because that doesn't exactly engender the races to come together and have their kumbaya moment. And so that's something that we need to really, really, really look at. And another thing that we need to really look at is how then, in light of what has happened in Buffalo, how do we respond to that? How do we respond to that, particularly as the church, particularly as the Black community? How should we respond to what has just occurred in Buffalo? Now, you've heard the president, you've heard many other politicians and other persons who have just come out against what was done. And I would dare say there are some people who are genuinely hurt by what would happen. And by the fact that this was not just random, this was planned. This was planned, and this person was able to be radicalized to the point that they were willing to deal with this whole issue of just taking people out. Brings up so many questions that we got to really kind of begin to deal with. Brings up so many questions we need to deal with. One of the things that I would dare say we have to deal with is, we're fighting over this issue in relationship to the abortion issue, and it's what's really interesting is you got the abortion issue, you got white supremacy and racism issues, you got issues in relationship to gun control, you got all these issues out there. And one of the things that's very interesting to me is that a lot of people who sit back and they talk about the whole issue of abortion and things like that, they call themselves pro-life. They are pro-life. And here's the thing. When people say that they are pro-life, I don't think they understand what the term means, or what it may indicate. When you sit back and you say, I am pro-life, life is not just humans. Life is life. Dogs have lives. Cats have lives. Roaches have lives. Okay? All these things. Plants have lives. All right? And yet we live in a society that we sit back and we talk about pro-life. But how many of y'all eat meat? What do you think? How do you think that meat comes around? How many of you, if you saw a roach in your house, how many of you going to kill it? All right? How many of you eat plants? What do you think that's doing? So that when we sit back and talk about pro-life and things of that nature, come on, y'all. Come on. We pick and choose what is important to us. That's what we do. We pick and choose what is important to us. And so that when we sit back and we say, we're pro-life over here, and you shouldn't have abortions and things of that nature. But it's fine that when kids are starving, and they're saying that the millions of kids now that are starving around the world, we do very little to alleviate that. And so those are just some of the things that we have to deal with, some of the things. And so we're going to have a great discussion tonight. And our host is here and ready to take y'all on the journey. And so I hope y'all are prepared. And again, as I said earlier, if you want, just type in your questions and your comments in that comment section, and let your voice be heard. All right. Let's go ahead and let Nathaniel Watkins come on in, and he's going to share with us. Amen. All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who's joining us. Thank you for everyone who's joined in. As what was said, type in your questions and your comments in the comment section, because this is a continuing conversation. And as always, with Impact 2022, we hop right into it. And so everyone knows about what has been going on or occurred in Buffalo this week or last week, based on how you're looking at it. And we all know about the tragedy in Buffalo. Not going to go back through the tragedy and the updates there, because we know exactly what happened. But one of the things that has been important that people have talked about is, why did such a tragedy happen? What is going on in our country that such a tragedy has happened? And there's just one aspect that we really want to hone in on today, or one aspect that we really want to talk about today, and that is the responsibility of the words that have been put out by people, by individuals that have been what they're called words that have incited violence. And so I'm going to give you an example. So immediately after the tragedy in Buffalo, what occurred was that the manifesto of the man who committed these atrocities was put all across the internet. And in the manifesto, it gave basically a playbook of the terms that individuals who peddle hate have been saying. The many of the terms of white supremacists who have been putting out things about being replaced, white people being replaced, white people having less influence in the world. And that's not shocking, and it's not new. And what has been said is that the problem of what has been going on is those thoughts have become mainstream. Those thoughts are easily put out. This isn't the backwoods conversations that people are having behind closed doors. This isn't the cowardly conversations of the Klan and other white supremacy groups where they hide in the backwoods and have these little conversations. These are mainstream now conversations. These are people, and we're not going to sugarcoat here because that's not what we do. So these are people like Tucker Carlson at Fox News who come out on national television day after day and spew hate, day after day and spew white supremacist lies. And what has been going on is, what is our responsibility when we see these individuals spewing these lies, and then you have individuals like the man who committed these atrocities following in on them? As a church, and so it's a direct pivot, as a church, our job and our opportunity is to talk about the truth. And what we see is, when the truth is not talked about, when lies are put out, violence then occurs. Oftentimes. Why did January 6th occur? Because, and when I say the January 6th, we're talking about at the Capitol. And why did January 6th occur? Because of lies. When a lie goes along and a lie starts to permeate, bad things and negative things happen from it. And so what we've talked about here multiple times is, what do we do when it comes to police violence? What do we do when it comes to injustice? But the question is, what do we do when we hear a lie being spread? And how do we stop that lie being spread, or combat the lie that is being spread? Because if we don't, and we let the lie fester, then these type of things happen. And so, I know a lot of people are talking directly about Buffalo, directly about, and that's not the only event that happened. As a matter of fact, there's been over 5 different events in the last 2 weeks of mass shootings, and many of them related directly to race. When we talk about the Korean shooting at the salon, so we were talking about the shooting at the church, where there's multiple shootings and multiple violence that has gone on, and most of these are permeated from lies that we let fester too long. And so, as I pose out to everyone out here, there's the aspects of, what do we do when we hear the lie? And what do we do when people decide that they want to be accepting of the lie? When the lies were put out there, we'll talk about the election. When the lies were put out there about the election, when people were saying, well, the 2020 election was stolen and blah, 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 blah. And people knew that those were falsehoods. They knew that is a lie. Or people wanted or chose to believe it because they wanted to believe that was the truth. As it festered, as it went on, you have some people who notice a lie, some people that believe it's a lie, but then some people believe that the lie is true. And then as a result, we start to get into a violent situation. When you have people that continuously come on and they say things like, well, what's going on in this country is that we're trying to minimize one population. We're trying to minimize white people and replace them. Now, part of that, you may look at and say, true. You want to minimize the dominance that in this country that we've had of one particular group of people, that, whether you want to call it a race or whatever, or just people of a certain color, and you want to make it more of a fair and equal playing field. You could say that, but as far as replacing people, that part is a direct lie. You're not replacing people. You're not try to replace folk. You want to say, let's take these folk out and put these folk in. You're not trying to do that. You want to give everybody an opportunity. So when you put out the lie of replacement, it leads to violence. It leads to people saying, well, you're not going to replace me. I have to fight back. I have to do such and such and such and such. How do we combat them lies? Well, the first one is we need to call out the liars. We'll call out Tucker Carlson, who lies and spews hate, and he spews, racist, white supremacist rhetoric. And we call out those who believe it as well, like whether it be your cousin, your uncle, mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, best friend, whatever. You got to call it out. Like, hey, you're believing these lies. You're volunteering to join a lie, because where it leads is down a path of destruction, and you can see the destruction by seeing the violence that occurs directly because of the lie. And then there's other aspects as well. Critical race theory should be banned. Should not the Great Replacement theory be banned? That's a good point, because you're sitting here and you're saying, well, we can't talk about the Great Replacement theory. We can't talk about critical race theory. Why should we be able to talk about the Great Replacement theory? That's a good point. We shouldn't be talking about Great Replacement because it's not true. It's not even. But if you want to, I'll sit here now. I'm not. And at the end of the day, if you have it as a theory and it's a solid, if it's thought through and it's a discussion point, let's have that discussion. We can have that discussion. Is it a thing? Is there impact there? Are there some truths to this theory that people are trying to replace those who replace the people who have white skin? You can have that discussion. And even if the answer is yes, there can be, what is the impact of that discussion? Because that's all that critical race theory truly is a discussion of the impact, the level of impact, that racist policies have had in this country. If we're talking about the real critical race theory. Now, if you're talking about the fake one that people have done for politics or political gain, where it's purely just you don't want people to teach Black history, well, then that's a whole nother situation. That's back to the whole case of lying, where you're just spewing lies for your benefit. And what do we do about that? It is our job, I think, as if you're a Christian and you're sitting here listening to this, I think it is our job to make sure that we don't support those who want to put out lies, that we don't participate in those lies as well. And so why is this part so important? Because what lies are being put out now that are going to lead to the next big thing? Critical race theory. There have been lies about what critical race theory is. And to the benefit of individuals, they lie and they put these lies out there for political gain, and I keep saying political gain because that's usually who it is. It's a lot of these politicians who are playing these games with their words. A lot of these political commentators on television who are playing games with these words. And then when violence comes as a result of the lie, because lies lead you down a path of destruction. When the violence comes as a part of these lies, who's going to be held responsible? At the end of the day, we sit back here and people are already trying to spin this and say, well, this is one guy who had this manifesto and had a bad ideology, and he was hooked in with some bad people, with some white supremacists, with some extremist white supremacists. But the reality of the matter is the lies are being pushed across by regular, everyday people who have access to television, or people who have access to being on the internet, or people that you see every day who are pushing these lies across. It's not the extreme. This is not in the closet. And what happens to those people who are able to push those lies across in just the mainstream? At the end of the day, what happens to, and I keep putting his name out there because he is the most famous right now white supremacist who is out here, and he has a mainstream platform. But what happens to Tucker Carlson, who gets on television on a nightly basis and talks about white supremacist ideology, who gets on there and is not not even trying to hide his racist ways. But even if you're going to be racist, you don't have to be a liar. And I know that sounds crazy, but you don't. And so that's where we're at. My call to action for myself and for others is, to be more diligent when it comes to these lies and these false stories and these falsehoods. Make sure, one, that we don't participate, but two, make sure that we call it out. Call it to the table. If you're going to choose to believe a lie, then say that you're choosing to believe a lie. But let's not act like you're on solid ground here. Let's not act like you're not complicit in the lie. Though we have freedom of speech, we cannot yell fire when there is no fire. Should there be some evidence to support your free speech? It's one of those topics that keeps going back and forth about free speech. We, from a country standpoint, absolutely free speech. You should have it. There shouldn't be any organized retribution for that. From a country standpoint. But now let's talk about it from a race standpoint. Let's talk about it from a religion standpoint. If you're a Christian and you're going to go out here and you're going to make these lies and these claims, there definitely should be some consequences for what you do. If you're going to be a member of a church, or you're going to be a leader in a church, and you're going to be complicit and you're going to help push along people who push these lies, things like that, there should be consequences. We shouldn't allow, as Christians, free speech is a little different. You're free to say what you want to say, but you're not free to say what you want to say from whatever position that you want to say it from. You should always be free to say whatever you want to say, but you're not going to say that here. If you want to go out here and you want to talk all types of crazy, that's fine, but you don't need to say that within the walls of the church or to the body of the church. You do not need to have a position of power, privilege, and honor in the church if you're going to be a liar or, again, complicit with lies. As far as the country goes, and as far as everybody else goes, yeah, it's free speech. Go for it. But as far as the church goes, no, we don't need to put up with that. As far as the communities, I'll speak for mine, which is the Black community. We don't need to put up with that. Let's be clear, we don't need to put up with that. I don't think my community, I feel like we don't need to put up with that at all. And so those of us, and I'll say we do a decent job of that. When we feel like someone has stepped out of bounds and they become a liar, or they become complicit in lies, we usually call them out. Unfortunately, we call them out with some words that I use and that others use, where we're just making fun of them and who they are. You say things like you're being a sellout, or you're being an Oreo, so a myriad of different names that we say. But we do. We call out those. We say their names, and we have no problem saying they're bad for the community. You look at somebody, this is not the kind of place where I'm just going to throw out people's names, but you look at individuals who their whole life has been about making certain that they keep their own people down. They may be Black and brown skin, and their whole purpose is to make sure that other Black and brown people stay down, or stay any benefit that comes to them, or anytime that they're in pain, they make sure that they stay on the opposite side of the aisle from them. That they want to live a lie somehow of that others are superior, and that they have transcended their race and gone on to be with the other race, and that all the rest of us need to get on board with them, or that we are inferior to them in some way. That's a lie. That's a lie. When you have Black people who talk down to the broader group as if they got the key and everybody else doesn't, that's a lie. And you know that you're lying. You ain't better than everybody else, and you know that. But I think that's the responsibility, that we call it out, and that we continue to call it out. We be diligent in calling it out. It is more important to call out the lie and to put out the truth than it is to be cordial. We always want to be nice to everybody and get along with everybody, and that's fine. You don't need to be mean in what you do. You don't need to be hurtful in your words. But we need to call out the lie. And so if you don't, these are the results. Buffalo is the result. Buffalo is a result of us allowing lies and liars to continue to put out this information in the mainstream. If you want to be somebody who puts out false narratives, if you want to be somebody who puts out false stories, especially when it comes to race, especially when it comes to issues of identity and gender and things like that, demographic. What if you want to continue to put out those lies? If you want to put out those stories, you should not feel comfortable in the mainstream. You should be someone who has to move into the shadows from whence your ideas came and stay there. But you should not be comfortable in this space. And the problem that we've had is that we've allowed people to get comfortable spewing lies and hate out in the public. And as a result of that comfort and that power that they're being able to show, you've empowered some people who may not be all there to then go out and act on the words that you said. January 6th showed a bunch of people, regular people, engineers, teachers, business owners, just regular folk, police officers, ex-military, just regular folk who decide to get on board with a lie and act a fool. And that's what happens. It's not like somebody has to be so far gone, just regular folk. But lies are so powerful. And so that's where we are today. I know that's a little different conversation, but I think it's important. This topic will be talked about many different ways. Buffalo and all of the shootings are talked about many different ways. Most people are going to go down through the details and the muck and mire of the different details, and we can talk again about what we need to do as a community. And those are great conversations. But for this one conversation, I wanted to look at it in a different aspect of what do we do about that lie? And again, call it out, call out the person who is lying, and call out those who are complicit. I think that is our job. And as a church, no acceptance of these lies. If you're going to do that, you're not going to do that here. You're not going to represent for God on Sunday, on Wednesday night service, on Thursday, or you're not even gonna represent God at the Christian softball league. If during the week or during your other time, you're gonna be out here spewing lies or helping people spew these lies. Suggestion for future discussion. We need to have a serious discussion about the difference between Christians and evangelicals. They're not the same. Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you're a Christian, you're a Christian. When you have to put in some extra stuff, I'm an evangelical Christian, well, what does that even mean? That means you're no longer a Christian, you're something else. And I think it shows in your words and it shows in your actions. You got extra words at the beginning, evangelical, before you put Christian, and you got extra actions that you put before Christ as well. You got some beliefs that you put before Christ as well. And that's why it's a different thing. It's very telling. Again, it's you put evangelical before you put the word Christian, and you put a lot of other stuff, your rules and your politics and your opinions before you ever get to being a Christian. And I think that that's a problem in those ministries. Now that people may be like, oh, that's wrong. That's not what it's about. I can't tell it. And if that is wrong, and if that's not what it's about, feel free to come on and join us. Put a comment. Let me know where I'm wrong, where it comes to that position. But yeah, that is a future discussion. We're definitely going to have to sit down. Hopefully we can get an evangelical to come in here and tell us why they have so many rules that aren't in the Bible that are more important than what God told us to do. And we can have that conversation back and forth why politics for them is more important than the word of God, where they celebrate and worship men and women who are on the political spectrum when they should be worshiping God. Tell me why, for many of them right now, they serve the Republican Party before they serve the Bible, before they serve Christ. We can have that conversation. Let's do that. Because again, I believe that there's a definite difference between evangelical Christians and Christians, and they're that, if you're a Christian, you don't need that extra stuff they bring to the table. All right. Well, our time is gone. I appreciate everyone who's been here. It has been a rough week, and please, if you see someone who is struggling in this time, in this time of just chaos right now, just a little bit of chaos. It's not the worst time ever. I don't want to make it seem like this is the worst moment in history, because it's not. But if you see anybody that's struggling, I encourage you to make sure that you reach out to them. Just like we discuss here, have a discussion with them. Be able to have adult discussions and free will discussions back and forth with people. And if you can't have it with them, then send them here so that they can put in their comments and their questions, and we can have a discussion and keep it going on. And that's why we're here. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank all the comments that came in. Again, this is a little bit of a more different topic, but we're here every Tuesday, 8:00. Impact 2022. Again, join us on Thursdays as well for Bible study on Thursday, and on Sundays as well at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Have a good one, and have a good night. This is Impact 2022. Thank you.